On July 1st, 2015, Guardado's family found his mutilated body in the woods. He had been missing for a few days.
He told detectives he strangled, hammered, and raped her, and he did it in a matter-of-fact way.
Yeah, it blows my mind that it's such a big deal that these 4 white people killed these 2 black people.
Lucia Guardado had hoped to shield her son, Jose Amaya Guardado, from the pervasive violence of El Salvador by bringing him to the United States when he was a little kid. Little did she know that the nightmare she tried to escape would find them in Miami. In their home, Lucia mourned, "I brought my son here to save him from killers. I never imagined this horror would happen to him here." Her heartbreak stemmed from the brutal end her 17-year-old son met. An end so savage that it defied her worst fears. Jose vanished on June 28, 2015, sending his family into a frantic search.
A few hours after getting dropped off at Homestead Job Corps Center on June 28th, Jose Guardado called his mom and asked for permission to leave campus and buy a snack. That's the last time Lucia Guardado spoke to her son.
I started digging I didn't find anything on the middle, so I started digging on the bottom part, and I see 2 foot facing down. I feel happy because I knew that I found him, that he was not going to be alone in there.
Every day, every night, every time I'm working, I cannot think about it. Every time I pass by there, I cannot stop looking back where I found him, he confessed, haunted by the memory. Santos Amaya, Jose's father, recounted his son's aspirations of becoming a mechanic. Yet, unknown to the family, the school that was responsible for preparing him also harbored students with criminal pasts. Jose, a quiet boy who kept to himself, had apparently been bullied and extorted by his tormentors. "They only show you the good," Santos lamented about the school, not the ugly. A late-night plea to the Labor Department, which runs the Job Corps, went unanswered, though a spokesman asserted that safety was their utmost priority.
They are unsure who could have killed their loved one in such a gruesome manner, but they are begging for answers.
The only thing is I'm wishing is that they get those persons, because that's not fair for my little brother that they kill it that way.
Miami-Dade police apprehended 4 of Jose's classmates, charging them with second-degree murder. Kahim Arbello, 20, Jonathan Lucas, 18, Christian Colin, 19, and Desiree Strickland, 19.
They were students at Homestead Job Corps, a school managed by the federal government for at-risk youth. Law enforcement said the 5 teenagers dug a grave before luring Jose Amaya Guardado into the woods, hacking him to death with a machete over a debt owed. Police suspect over drugs.
The report painted a horrifying picture. Strickland reportedly missed the start of the brutal assault because she was urinating in the woods. The remote school's surrounding forest provided a sinister stage for the violence. Ordered into his shallow grave after the initial attack, Jose made a desperate final attempt to resist. Arbello then struck repeatedly until Jose's face caved in. The suspects buried him alive, according to the chilling report. After doing so, Strickland and Arbello stayed behind, aiding a grotesque twist by engaging in sexual activity near the fresh grave.
Police say after the murder, the female charged, Desiree Strickland, had sex with Arbello here, in the woods, not far from where Guardado's body was in the shallow grave.
The killers meticulously covered their tracks, burning Jose's belongings and their clothes and disposing of the weapon, which was unclear at first what it was. According to the reports, the grave had been dug 2 weeks before the attack. And while everything indicates that they had planned this attack all along, in a chilling video, Desiree Strickland's voice rang out, "I did not kill that boy, I promise." Her pleas for her father punctuated the eerie footage.
Why? Because that's right now, you're under arrest right now. Okay? You want to talk to me? No.
I want to talk to my dad.
You're not going to talk to your dad right now. You're not going to talk to your dad.
Why? I can't even get my stuff.
These are your options. You can either, I can uncuff you, you can talk to me and tell me your involvement in the whole case, or
I can't help my brother here.
Or just because you go to jail. I'm not nobody's fault.
I haven't done anything. You can't send people.
Or I can take something for your whole involvement.
I have no involvement. I didn't do anything.
From our investigation has revealed the involvement that you were in with the case.
I have no involvement.
Strickland, the girlfriend of the suspected ringleader, Arbello, found herself entangled in a web of violence and deceit. But is it? Remember, Strickland pleaded not guilty when she and Arbello lingered in the woods after the murder to have sex near the freshly dug grave. Detectives sought telltale marks believing Jose was hacked to death with a machete. The forested area bore scars from the attack, with tree branches slashed in multiple places. Was she part of it? As the wheels of justice slowly turned with Strickland arrested last and the others the week before, questions remained. Attorneys for the accused were either silent or had withdrawn, and the suspects' families remained unreachable. All 5 accused pleaded not guilty, and their lawyers worked diligently to ensure a fair trial. Those efforts included securing closed hearings and keeping crucial evidence like newly revealed photos away from the public eye. The suspense of the upcoming trial climaxed as the legal team's extraordinary measures reflected the high stakes and intense scrutiny surrounding this brutal case. The darkness that fell on the Amaya Guardado family stretched towards the suspects as the search for answers continued. And as it usually happens, answers started coming to light.
Another person has taken a plea deal, admitting to playing a role in the high-profile and brutal killing of a Job Corps student 7 years ago.
It's a gruesome case NBC6 has been keeping tabs on for years.
Well, now 3 of the 5 people accused have pleaded guilty to crimes surrounding the death of Jose Amaya Guardado back in 2015. 2 others await trial.
In a courtroom full of tension, Strickland stood, her right hand raised in an orange jumpsuit, and uttered the words that convicted her.
Pled guilty to conspiracy to murder.
Conspiracy to commit murder, is that correct? Yeah.
She'll avoid a murder charge and 2 other charges of battery on officers, which came later. She gets 15 years in prison, including 7 years credit for time already served.
For Strickland, a glimmer of hope flickers, teasing the possibility of freedom as early as 2028. Her lawyer, though, sounded optimistic, claiming that
Desiree Strickland was very pleased to have this case resolved today. She feels terrible for what happened to the Jose Amaya family and Mr. Amaya. It was never anyone's intention that he die.
Once among the 5 apprehended, Strickland will now testify against Arbello, the alleged wielder of the fatal machete.
They were all friends in school. It was just a very unfortunate set of circumstances. She's a very minor participant in it, and there are still other people remaining who are far more involved than she was.
But even as Strickland dreams of a future beyond prison walls, her path is lined with restrictions. Upon release, she will face 1 year of community control and a decade under the wary gaze of probation. The courtroom's silence failed to justify the weight of these decisions. Each plea sent her a step deeper into the darkness of justice served and the shadows of lives forever altered by a conspiracy born of youth and foolish actions. A foolishness that was shown until the last minute in court when she had that bored look on her face as the judge read her charges. Miami-Dade prosecutors hunger for Arbello's death, seeking the ultimate penalty. He's been charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and 4 counts of tampering with a witness or victim. Jonathan Lucas and Joseph Michael Carbera, once fellow students, had already given in, pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit murder in 2020. All 4, though, have been charged with first-degree murder. Due to the huge publicity of the case that might jeopardize the right to a fair and impartial jury during the trial, it remains unknown what and when will happen to them. All we can do is wait, especially Jose's family. If you watched it in a horror film, you'd probably think to yourselves, who in the right frame of mind writes such twisted films? We warn you, horror films have nothing on Kevin Davis. There are no introductions to who Davis was as a kid, what kind of childhood he had, what kind of things he liked, or how he ended up being the person he became. Is he even allowed to be called a person? Therefore, this story cuts right to it, tells you exactly what happened, but more importantly, lets Davis tell you how how it happened. Kevin Davis, an 18-year-old from Corpus Christi, Texas, was convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the gruesome murder of his mother, Kimberly Hale, aged 50. The courtroom was gripped with horror as a taped confession revealed the chilling details of the crime committed on March 26, 2014, the only evidence revealed to the public and the sole source of information. Firstly, the detectives asked him what happened. Why did he do what he did? Again, we warn you, the information provided is sickening.
I asked my mother for permission to die, or rather kind of commit suicide, the sort of around the bush sort of thing. Because, well, that doesn't really matter why I wanted to kill myself.
Sure it does. It does.
I'm bored with life. I don't like life. I don't like people. I don't like living it, basically. There's really anything depressing about it. It just is what it is. And so, I wrote the note. I did. Wrote a plan to kill both my mother and my sister, quite frankly, because that's always been a thing of mine. I'm a bit of a pervert.
Is it like a fantasy thing?
It is, actually. So, that didn't happen. The best laid plans never work out, apparently, or at least the one scribbled on a piece of paper.
Before you hear exactly what he did and how he did it, bear in mind that he admitted to the heinous act in court while smiling at the jurors.
I tried to kill her with a cord, a ripped cord from a video game console controller. That didn't work, huh?
Where was this at your place?
She was sitting on the couch watching TV. Okay. That didn't work out too well. She started screaming, and so I went to her room, opened a drawer at the very bottom to the right. I pulled out a hammer. I went back in the living room, and well, you kind of get the gist from there. And she was out pretty quickly. Kind of tried to play dead at first, but then I finished it.
So you hit her with a hammer when she was sitting in the sofa in the living room?
No, first I tried to her, and that didn't work. She grabbed the cord, so I raced back into her room, grabbed the hammer, came back out, and then did it.
How many times did you hit her with a hammer in the living room?
At least 20, but then she was still alive. I dragged her into the room, as you probably clearly saw, and then I kind of wormed my hands into her brains to kind of just cut it. She was still snoring.
Okay. So she was still alive?
She was still alive.
And you went in there and you kind of grabbed those brains?
Yeah, I just finished it.
Alright.
Davis goes on and describes some more details as to how his mother vaguely resisted, saying that he only used the hammer to in her head and a knife to stir up her brains a little. And then he used his hands to remove it. But his twisted mindset urged him for more.
And then what did you do after that?
Then I had with her corpse.
You did? Okay. Did you cut her?
I did, actually.
Have you ever done that before, like sex with her?
No, I haven't, actually.
This is just the first time?
Oh yeah, I lost my to a corpse.
The scene police discovered was McRae. Hill's body was found undressed from the waist down and posed, a disturbing testament to the sexual abuse Davis inflicted post-mortem. So the detectives asked him, why?
I'd always loved my mother, I guess in the wrong sort of way, but a kind of love, I guess. Maybe some rage, maybe just a little.
You feel sorry you did this to your mom?
In a way, yes, but I wouldn't take back what I did. It's strange, really. I did love her.
If I was to ask you what did she do to deserve this, what would you answer?
Absolutely nothing. I'm a cruel, disgusting person. Yeah, basically.
His statements to the police were devoid of remorse, as he also coldly declared, "I don't have morals. A body's a body, a piece of meat." Davis also revealed that he wanted to kill his sister too, but then he decided against it because it seemed a little much. In his confession, Davis, in a relaxed manner, explained a lot more about his fantasies, starting from actually killing, opening up, and having sex with his cat as a kid, to liking girls that he would have decapitated and also have with, Davis's confession to the detectives lasted for over half an hour. Despite his lawyer's appeal for leniency due to possible mental issues, the prosecution asserted there was no medical evidence of such any condition. Davis himself seemed to agree, claiming that he was sane and deserving of 100 years in prison. He chillingly acknowledged his lack of humanity, leaving the courtroom and the world to ponder the depths of his depravity. An unimaginable horror unfolded in January 2013 in the quiet town of Joliet, Illinois. Eric Glover and Terrence Rankins, both 22, walked into what they thought was a friendly gathering at Alyssa Masara's apartment, only to meet a gruesome fate. Masaro and her boyfriend, Joshua Minor, along with their accomplices, Adam Landerman and Bethany McKee, all of them 18 to 24 years old, had a sinister plan that would turn their friends into victims. The night began friendly, playing video games, but hidden tensions and darker intentions simmered beneath the surface. No one really knows what ignited the group's fury. Their future statements were contradicted, but we know that throughout the night, the unthinkable happened. What was intended as a robbery spiraled into a brutal double murder. Glover and Rankins were strangled to death in a horrifying betrayal by those they considered friends. In the immediate aftermath, a macabre scene unfolded. Minor suggested to Masaro that they should complete their crime by having sex on the victims' bodies. Ultimately, they kind of had it next to them. In a spine-chilling videotaped police interview, Minor claimed that it was Masaro who first proposed the idea of sex in such a grotesque circumstance. However, they ultimately found themselves unable to follow through fully, disturbed by the reality of their actions. "We both couldn't get off. Plus, it was weird," Minor confessed. The courtroom was a battleground of conflicting testimonies. Minor painted a picture of a spontaneous act gone wrong, while Masaro and McKee's accounts revealed premeditation. The women admitted that they knew about the planned robbery and murder, participating in the aftermath by the corpses with a liquor bottle and shouting racial slurs. This horrific saga, which became known as Nightmare on Hickory Street, reached a critical climax 2.5 years later, on June 15, 2015. But the trial started the year before that.
Today, Alyssa Masaro testified the murder charge against her was dismissed in return for her testimony against McKee and the other co-defendants. Masaro testified the four were going to rob Terrence Rankins, saying the plan was for him to come over and we would rob them. Masaro says they all drank and smoked, but she and McKee left the room with the two defendants and two victims. Testifying, "I heard someone say, 'Why are you doing this to me?' She testified from downstairs, it sounded like something, maybe very heavy, had fallen over. Masaro said when she tried to get into the room, the door was locked. Testifying, "I heard someone say, 'Die, die.' When Masaro saw Rankins and Glover again, she testified tearfully they weren't moving." Under cross-examination, defense attorney Chuck Bretz asked Masaro, "Bethany was some sort of mastermind?" Masaro said no. Bretz later referred to Masaro's initial statements to police, saying, "You lied to the police continually during that interview." She replied, "Yes, I did." In letters Masaro sent from jail, she wrote, "I'm willing to do anything just to see you and my dad again." And in another letter, Masaro wrote, "I'm so sick of being here. I'm not dumb enough to be here the rest of my life."
May 23, 2014, in exchange for her testimony, Masaro pleaded guilty to robbery and concealment of a homicide, avoiding the harsher sentences later on her co-defendants faced. The details of the murders, the luring of Glover and Rankins under the pretense of a party, the subsequent and the plans to dismember their bodies highlighted her twisted mindset, having accepted that plea deal for lesser charges.
Alyssa Masaro is currently serving a 10-year sentence. With good behavior, she may only serve 5. She testified in court today that that possibility was better than the possibility of facing life in prison.
Her agreement to testify against her co-defendants was a strategic move, though it brought little comfort to the victims' families.
We want to know exactly what happened in that house, but the details are, it's hard to take sometimes,
Will County State's Attorney James Glasgow is among those prosecuting this case, In opening statements, an assistant state's attorney told the judge Minor and others planned the robbery, and at one point Minor lost it when one of the victims fought back. And after the victims were suffocated to death, the defendant surfed on the bodies.
By June 19, 2014, Minor's statements to the police were deemed admissible, further tightening the noose around him and his co-conspirators. Minor's lack of remorse and his willingness to discuss the crime with investigators painted a picture of frightening indifference.
Minor's defense attorney told the judge the evidence will not show that Minor was any mastermind. 4 people were originally charged for the murders. Last month, Bethany McKee was convicted, and Alyssa Masaro pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for her testimony against McKee.
But the dominoes started falling on August 29, 2014, when McKee was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Judge Kinney, in his verdict, highlighted McKee's crucial role in luring the victims to their deaths and her cruel involvement in the aftermath. Despite her defense's arguments, her actions before and after the murders sealed her fate, ensuring a life sentence without parole.
I'm just glad it's here. I'm really, it's been a long 20-some months. I'm just glad we finally getting something accomplished here now.
Eric Glover and Terrence Rankins were 22 years old when prosecutors say they were lured to a Joliet home, robbed of $120, and killed. Joshua Minor was the ringleader.
You took my son's life for what? Cigarettes, beer, drugs? Is that worth throwing your family life away and somebody else's life away? No, it's not.
Just because he gets life in prison, Eric and Terrence doesn't come back. So I don't know if there's a such thing as justice. You get him off the street. They can't do this to anybody else.
In court, Jameel Kent testified about the impact of her son's loss and about the 4 people, including the son of a Joliet cop charged in the crime. I will never understand how someone could commit such a heinous act and then appear to celebrate it, Kent told the judge. They were partying while they planned the crime and continued to party after my son and Eric's lives were taken. Joshua Minor was given the chance, but said nothing before the judge sentenced him to life in prison.
I wanted to hear him say he was sorry, at least say something. I mean, it wouldn't even matter. Just say something.
On September 22, 2014, Minor, who had waived his right to a jury trial, faced the same judge who had already condemned McKee. As police testimony unfolded, the grim details emerged. Minor confessed to killing one victim and implicating Landerman in the other. Masaro, who had secured a plea deal, was expected to testify, her cooperation pivotal in the ongoing trials. The following month, on October 8, 2014, Minor faced his own judgment. Opting for a bench trial, Minor stood before Judge Kinney, who found him guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder. The evidence was damning. Minor had meticulously planned the robbery and orchestrated the killings. His fate was a mandatory life sentence, the price for his calculated cruelty. Rankin's mother stated,
just because he gets life in prison, Eric and Terrence doesn't come back. So I don't know if there's a such thing as justice. You get him off the street. They can't do this to anybody else.
According to the order, the court found the defendant guilty of all counts. In sentencing the defendant, the court stated, "It is really difficult to comprehend the senseless nature of this crime. It is impossible for me to comprehend it. The gain that was to come from this was so minimal. To take a life, 2 lives, for some pocket change, some cigarettes, and some drugs. It just is. The only word that can come to me is totally senseless. There was a time where you'd be facing the death penalty, and for most of my years here, I was responsible to ensure that those trials were conducted in a fair and open manner. But the legislator has seen it fit to remove that penalty, and the maximum penalty for this offense is life in prison. That's what you're sentenced to. You're sentenced to spend your life in prison. It is impossible for me to know how the families of the victims are feeling, and I know that this has probably created significant issues in your family as well, but that we can't change. The only thing we can do is impose the punishment that is appropriate, and that will be a sentence of life in prison." The year after, on June 15, 2015, Landerman was also found guilty. His conviction marked the final chapter of this horrifying tale. Landerman's trial revealed the sinister details. He admitted to strangling Glover, while Minor, the mastermind, strangled Rankins. Despite Landerman's initial reluctance to participate in the robbery turned double homicide, he ultimately joined in, sealing his fate too. The attorney emphasized,
"These two men lost their lives for $120. The four friends are then said to have used the stolen money to buy alcohol and drugs from Landerman's cocaine dealer." Meanwhile, Assistant Public Defender April Simmons described Landerman as a scared 19-year-old kid who allowed himself to be intimidated and manipulated by an older ringleader, then 24-year-old Joshua Minor.
Regardless of what Landerman or his lawyer said, though, his sentence would also be mandatory life imprisonment. You want to know what kind of people we're talking about? Listen to this.
The whole planning and everything. Everybody had their own little idea of getting rid of the bodies and everything. And I was thinking of NCIS, Criminal Minds, all that CSI crime lab shit with a piece of my hair on the body was gonna fuck us over. But we come to realize after we calmed down and everything, like the way JPD, okay, they ain't even gonna care that much about two black people. The only reason that it's such a big thing is because it was two black guys and four white people. And technically, the Bethany girl, she's like half Mexican. And the Lisa girl, she's part Korean. So we wasn't four white people. But anyways, yeah, it like blows my mind that it's such a big deal that these four white people killed these two black people. If it was the other way around, it would never even hit the news. Like some black guys killed some white guys. It never would even hit the news. And it's just outrageous that they're looking at me like I'm a Charles Manson type shit. And how the fuck can I be that if I'm more slow-witted than half these motherfuckers around here?
Yeah, that kind of people. Now, as the trials came to a close, the community of Joliet was left to grapple with the aftermath of these brutal killings. These were people the quiet town knew. Now, do you detect a pattern here? Pay attention to this, going back to our first case.
This is Kahim Arbello's grandmother, who raised him after his mother died when he was a young boy. She says she simply can't believe her grandson would commit such a terrible crime, specifically because his own mother was murdered.
If we come to the realization that we don't know our own people, the ones we love and who love us back, our family, our friends, our neighbors, how are we supposed to know anyone? Are we even capable of knowing our own selves? What do you think brings together a natural, pleasurable desire like making love with this unnatural, horrific impulse to brutally end someone's life? Please let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.